If you guys have questions, you can throw them in the, I guess it's the Q&A section. Basically, we'll just go through a couple of slides, PowerPoint slides. Then I'll get into sort of the demo software, talking about cabling and circuits and fibers and all that good stuff. So, I'm this person over here on the right, customer support, sales engineer, do pre and post sale stuff and support things, etc. Fred, who's might be on this call, I'm not sure, is president of Graphical Networks. So yeah, we're gonna there's some polling questions. So let me see what we got here. It's 2 polling questions. Let me launch that. If you guys wouldn't mind. How do you keep track of your cabling infrastructure? You can select more than one answer. If you have some answers there, feel free to post. Good old Visio, always a nice thing. There's I don't know. Spreadsheets, other. Yeah, it's the typical stuff. Other, I guess, could be a lot of different things. Other programs, DCM or cloud tools. There's lots of stuff out there. We sort of track stuff. So anyway, that's good. Thanks for that. In that one. And then, so the overview today, just talking about, again, cables, call them zombie cables. Simplify circuit management and design, see anything in your outside plant. So it's just basically anything related to cabling, right? What other, I think I had another polling question here. So we'll jump into number 2. Launch, currently, what do you currently document? I think I have too many U's in there. What do you currently document or need to document? You can select more than one answer. Outside plant, data centers, office floors, all the above, other, all the above. Yeah, easier said than done, right? It's always sort of tricky getting into documentation, documenting things, infrastructure, etc. Takes a bit of time, and kind of is what it is. But yeah, if you got to do it, if there's a good reason to do it, maybe it's security, maybe it's capacity planning, just the frustration of not really knowing what you have, where it is, how it's connected, troubleshooting, etc. It's kind of got to go down that path. You can choose your battles, of course. Thanks for that. Looks like all the above was the winner, and then followed by outside the plant. And this. And all right, thanks. So yeah, let me stop the share here. Let me jump into sharing my netTerrain instance. So you guys should see this is my demo project, our demo project. So it's got example diagrams and other things. Your project, normally a project starts off with netTerrain, just a blank sheet of paper, basically, just a white sort of middle page there. Mine's all crazy with red stuff there. So yeah, it's hopefully you guys can see that. What is netTerrain? Well, netTerrain is really a documentation tool, network documentation tool. And it's really browser based. You basically log into the system, user password. You can have different permission levels, that kind of thing. You have a catalog of objects on the right hand side. You basically go and grab an object and drag it in, and you'll have an object. An object can have data fields associated with it. So on the left hand side, you have all these sort of data fields and things to choose from. There's different object types, racks, devices that you can, choose to drag in as well. But from the standpoint of documentation, especially cabling, cables are something that, again, you'd have a selection of objects in the catalog. You can add things to this, by the way. You can create your own stuff and put it into your catalog. You don't need us to do that. You can do it yourself. But if I want to bring in a cable that's got 12 strands in it, I can drag and drop a cable, and then I can bring up an interface and show the strands, and then make the connections of where the strands go. Or maybe I'm just bringing in conduit, or maybe it's just simple copper, or maybe I'm doing a logical drawing, right, and just showing connectivity. So level of detail is effectively up to you as the end user of what you're trying to document, right? Don't try and do more than you really have to or need to as far as solving that initial problem of whatever it is you're running into. It just ends up being more work than necessarily needed. Now, you saw me drag and drop things. It's very easy to do, but when you have 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 things you got to bring into the tool, you may not want to be dragging and dropping objects. So you can do things like Excel import. So there's Excel import examples with videos and stuff you can watch, documentation, training, etc. But traditional, more logical, flat type drawing I have here. This is actually tied in with some of the other tools, but you can see, you have connections, connectivity back. So it might be logical connections because you're just kind of showing logical. Of course, you can get into the physical connections as well, and I'll talk about and show that in a second. But anyway, creating diagrams does not have to be all manual. You can, again, do Excel imports, a bulk import. You can do discovery, SNMP. You can integrate with other systems, example, something like SolarWinds or ServiceNow or other ones. So there's ways to do automation as well. But, from the standpoint of when you're talking about cabling and connectivity and all these other things you might be trying to document to do some automation, some of it might be manual. The big trick, part of the trick is, of course, having data, some data source that you want, a trusted data source that you can bring in if you're going to do an integration or you're going to do a CSV import of some sort, right? You need some data that's trusted. So if you don't have that, your first step is, of course, maybe finding data, getting data first. This is showing more of an outside plant map where you've got multiple, connections across many sort of miles of pathways. These are just pathways, but there's underlying sort of cables and strands and so on. This is basically showing different universities and how they're connected together across my map here, campus. Everything sort of terminates down here to UMD. Well, it's just, again, example projects, not their project. So something we build to represent, showing off features, functionality. But again, back to documentation, what is it about documenting? In the case of something like if you have a campus environment, you might have multiple buildings, and then you've got, you want to show conduit runs, pathways, whatever it happens to be. You can certainly do that, show the pathway between, a building and the manhole or the handhole. What's inside, inside here, what is that? Oh, that's a conduit. So we have a conduit there that's showing diagram. And then I can see the conduit, right? And then what's inside the conduit? Oh, I've got, multiple fiber cables or that sort of thing. So this is taking me to a conduit. This conduit runs from the building to a point actually inside a manhole. So this is showing off, butterfly and all that stuff. But to the point of, again, cabling, showing infrastructure, showing cables, showing connections. Connections are end to end, so you can have connections run from, between different object types, nodes, racks, devices for the most part, or down to the port level. So, again, you have to determine what makes sense for what you're trying to document. If it's more high level, you just might be doing, I just want to show conduit and where the fiber cables run, right? What's the path? But you might also be, well, I need to show more than that. I need to show details of cabling, maybe a lot of detail. Maybe you need to get into showing a floor plan and wiring closet, right? And what are all the cables that are running out of the wiring closet? In this case, I've got, these are considered wiring trays. They're representing the pathways for all the fiber, for all the cable, not just fiber cable, but let's say the RJ45 Cat6 cable that's coming out of the wiring, right? This is all these cables are actually bundled into a specific wiring tray. So if I look at a wiring tray, on the left-hand side, you've got, how many cables that the tray can hold, what's the fill percentage, and how many cables are actually in that tray, and I can see that information if I want to. So there's a lot of detail. But if you need to track it, if you're trying to track, everything, full infrastructure down to, I have connections coming out of the wiring closet to, let's say, a room, and to the wall jacks, all the way to a phone, let's say. Where's that phone located? What port on the switch is that phone operating off of? How do I answer that question? Well, I can track this cable by double clicking on it and knowing what jack I'm connected to, and then that goes out to B1 side and so on. But that's one way to track it. The other way is you can double click. And part of connectivity or connections, one of the things you can run, we call it the CLR. It's really physical path, right? This is physical hierarchy versus the physical actual connections or path that you might be taking. So let me move this out of the way. I'll get my little annotator out. So this is the hierarchy part, right? Here's my phone. That phone's in this room. That room is in this floor. That floor is in this building. It's inside the campus, inside my physical network. That phone connects to the port on the wall jack, which has a cross connect, which is the port on the other side of the wall jack, basically inside the wall. We just represent it this way. And then there's a cable, goes to the patch panel, the back side, cross connect, out the front side of the patch panel, out another patch cable to port 29 of the switch, right? So you can click on these things and see the different objects and see the data about the object. You can also double click and then it'll take you there. Let me clear my drawing. So again, network documentation, what do you need to document? Do I need to document to the switch and port and patch panels and all those things? Is it about the Ethernet cables and so on? How you might want to handle it. So that's, you have that capability, the ability to do that. And again, those connections, all the things that you're seeing here, that data could come in from, discovery processes. Well, not all of it as a patch panels, not discover patch panels, but you might do CSV import again. You might have it in some asset system where you're going to take advantage of that. So cabinet elevations and so on. And what about other connections? So, that's Ethernets and patching and so on. So you can document, this type of stuff. But in a lot of cases, you may not care about documenting that type of stuff. You might care more about the high level, the primary arteries of the network, right? But the other side of that might be not just data connections. It might also be power, right? So you might say, oh, I've got power coming from a device, circuit breakers, all that good stuff. This is kind of an old school circuit breaker example I'm using here. And I want to know, this circuit breaker, where's the power go for this thing? Oh, it goes to this PDU. And what about that PDU? Where does the power go from the PDU? Which devices are on this particular PDU power strip, right? Well, I can see that down here, actually. I can see all these connections, these are power supplies for different devices. I can double click and basically see those connections. So, and I could, again, generate CLR, circuit layout record, physical path, and see the path all the way back. Go, oh, this device power supply. So, let's say this power supply is down. I want to know what's feeding it. But if this power supply is down, what about the other power supply that's on here? Is it redundant? Is it on a different PDU? Right? You want to know that for sure, I'm sure, right? Especially critical equipment. You want it to be on the same power side. That could be a problem. You might even want it on a whole different power unit. So it's totally separate power. So a whole different circuit, right? That kind of thing. So you document those things, keep track of it, right? So you can do data, you do power, really anything you want to show as a connection. You control the catalog, so you control the link types and other things that you might want to document. Now, in the case of fiber cables and strands, I sort of showed a little bit of the strand interface, but again, you can navigate again what we refer to as that CLR view by double clicking on an object and generating a CLR. And it can be a small CLR, it could be a big CLR. The CLR is just on demand. So in the case of something like this, where you have a very big CLR, I'm starting over here at a port on a card inside a chassis, and it connects through, and this one actually goes outside plant. So here I'm actually looking at a fiber cable strand off of one of those fiber cables that's basically running between the manhole and the building. It's a strand off of the cable. So it gives you the full run end to end to start to finish. Right? So you put the data in the system, and then you can start to generate things like the CLR on demand. So now, with that said, the other side of this too is you've got these physical connections, cabling, and all these things. You can also use the tool if you really are getting into fiber cables. You want to do fiber circuits. You want to be able to define a circuit. You want the system to be able to tell you, hey, do I have strands available? And where are they? Is there a pathway between 2 points? The system can do that as well if, again, you're following putting in the data about with all those connections and fiber cables and strands and so on. So it allows me to go in and say, hey, show me a path between these two buildings that I might want to build a fiber circuit between. So I'd say show circuit, 6 hops, hops. I can actually see the individual strands that are going to be used. I could change the strands that are used. I could say, oh no, I want to use strand 5 and strand 6 instead, and so on. And you walk through and you create what we refer to as an ACRA, the automated circuit routing algorithm, fancy word, or words, I should say. The nice thing about the ACRA is it allows you to name the circuit. And when you name the circuit and you define the circuit ends up the strands end up basically getting removed from the system because they're dedicated to the circuit. So this is a named circuit. Bill of material, I can go and look at the CLR here. This is a little bit different CLR. It's called the circuit CLR. It's more block diagram CLR. You'll see it in just a second. Kind of big, so it does take a half a minute or so to generate, but you see it shows you at the top the physical path between the 2 points, and then you end up with here's the library, and here's McKeldin and library. This is basically the manhole. That's this guy here. That's this guy here. That's this guy here. But it shows you the equipment. It shows the fact there's 2 strands, which strands are in use, strand 1 and 2. And this is a defined circuit. The circuit is called this. This is the name of the circuit. So that's it's more. I think it's more readable when you're talking about circuits than the big sort of that big hierarchical CLR, which you kind of have these sort of massive sort of columns of blue of swim lanes. You can still generate the swim lane CLR as well, but that's getting into the weeds. So again, what does this all lead back to? Well, again, it goes back to if you do want to document connectivity and connections and paths and all these other things, it's a very visual tool. There's other tools out there. It might make more sense for your environment, maybe more tables and views and forms and that kind of thing, which is fine. But if you're trying to document systems, this might be a good way. So, I'm just see if there's any questions. Q&A out there. I'm happy to answer any questions, maybe, if I can. But outside of that, it's kind of what I wanted to cover. Again, our tool was there to really allow you to document your infrastructure as built and keep track of cabling and other things, fiber strands, You can get into some capacity playing with that, like, as I mentioned, with fiber trays or with conduits, how many cables are in the conduit and show capacity and fill rates and so on. Fiber strands, of course, also being able to see strands and which ones are dedicated to certain circuits, let's say. But yeah, that's what I had to cover. So if there's any questions, please let us know. Otherwise, certainly thank you for your time today. If you do have, let me stop this share for a second. Let's bring up the, let me just bring up the screen here. This one, share, there we go. Saw it in actions, discover. You can reach out to Fred, Fredco or sales at Graphical Networks, and you can schedule a fuller demo, or if you want to ask more questions, or if you want to do a trial, reach out. We do have a netTerrain.us where you can sign up and try things out. We do recommend you spend a little time, maybe 15-20 minutes, just having us walk you through a few things, especially if you're doing outside plant, kind of is helpful. Those sort of things. Functionality for adding microwave towers and paths. Yeah, it's fine. Microwave tower is just an object for us. The tower can be a node, and then you can jump into the tower as a sub diagram and then build out equipment in the tower if you want to do it that way. And then you can show connectivity of the microwave back to whatever the destination, I guess, microwave would be, or the dish, I guess, is, I'm not an expert in that area, but yeah, those objects you can definitely add in. If you want to show a sort of a link to show the path, you could call it microwave, of course, and have it show the actual path. And even if it's on a dynamic map, you could show a distance between the 2 points as well, or just show it on top of 2 buildings or something like that, or so hopefully that answered that question for you. It's a good question. Thanks for that. So yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah, just anything else you want to try out, just let us know, or got questions, let us know. Happy to help. So that's that. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.